Hi, it's Andy from Pure Yorkshire Honey. Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to talk about drawn comb. Whether drawn comb is the most valuable commodity in beekeeping. So here I've got a frame of foundation, as we're all pretty aware of. Beginners, obviously, this is how you build your frames up. And eventually, if you have a good season, they start drawing it out like that. This is a super frame or a shallow frame. This time of year, it becomes so valuable. As you can see in the background, we're at full flow with oilseed rape, or OSR as some people call it, and it just saves the bees so much work. I can't remember the exact figures, but a lot of honey goes into producing wax. So if you can keep your frames in good condition, store them well, you can reuse super frames year after year. So in this video, I'm just going to go for a few things, how I sort of encourage the bees to draw out fresh comb for me. So the first thing I would mention, if you're close to oilseed rape with your bees, then use that. It's a fantastic resource. The bees don't have to do a lot of work to turn it into honey, so they're gonna just bring it in by the bucket load. As you can see, this is one of my biggest hives on this apiary. If you've been following the channel a little while, this is our new apiary we've got this year, and you can see I've just demoed this yesterday. So what we've got in the top box, we've got all the original brood, and we've got some supers in between. Then in the bottom box, we've got the queen on a frame of brood, and then backfilled that with fresh foundation. Just the field force alone coming back will see that, and they will draw that out because there's a massive flow on. They'll want the queen to lay up, so they will draw that foundation out. If it stays nice and warm, they could quite easily draw that foundation out in a week to 2 weeks, and it'll be fully drawn up, and she would have laid into that. And they will start backfilling this, and then if you put some supers in between as well, I've got a couple of drawn ones, and I've got the bottom one was an undrawn one that I put on a previous video. They've fully drawn that out now, and that is one fantastic way to draw out some fresh foundation. Another way, the way I do my splits, I move the queen away from the box. I'd sort of, it is an artificial swarm, but it's more of a walkaway split, but I take the original queen. So what we've got in here, I've just done a 3-frame split, so 2 frames of brood with the queen, frame of brood, backfilled it with foundation downstairs. They pretty much drew that fresh foundation out in a week. And what I've done now, just to give them more space, I've put 6 frames of foundation in this top brood extension. Because it's a good queen, it's a year-old queen, she's just going to lay up, and they will just work that so quickly. Deep foundation is just as valuable as your super foundation. It's just if you're using it for brood, sometimes you sort of cycle it out between 2 and 3 years, depending on how black it gets, because obviously the brood foundations carry a lot more pathogens and stuff like that. There's obviously a lot more potential for transmission of disease, where the super frames or the shallow frames, if they're not used for like a brood and a half or anything like that, they're purely sort of honey stores, and they're good just to keep until they sort of start falling to bits. So I've just popped the lid off this nuke, and as you can see, the bees are already working these 3 frames, and we try and lift one out slowly and see what we've got. See, they're already working out. That frame has been in 2 days. 2 days I've had these frames on, and that's how effective a good flow can be, because the bees sense it. Their natural instinct is to store as much honey as possible. Let's see if we can get another frame out. So they will naturally draw out that quick. And obviously you've got an influx of young bees as well, and it's a good way of swarm prevention. You've got to give bees something to do. If they've got no space and nothing to do, that is an easy way to create a swarm impulse. If you give them plenty of space, stuff to do, you're certainly reducing the chances. By all means, it doesn't effectively stop them 100%, but you've just got to work with the bees, imagine what they're trying to do, and just sort of accommodate that. Just to show you an example where it doesn't quite go to plan. This was an overwintered nuke. They seem to be really good busting for bees. I put them into a hive, they're starting to expand. To be fair, I don't think they're properly filled up in the brood box yet. I have been checkerboarding it, trying to encourage them to move stores upstairs rather than keeping it downstairs. But as you can see, I'll just pull the middle frame out if we can. We can't. But you can see just in there, they're only just starting to work it. We are into a good week of weather here now, so hopefully I'm going to leave it on and just see. But there could be an underlying issue. They might not have you with a queen, they might try to supersede them. So both of these boxes, and I think this other box here, might do another video on it actually. It could be a failing queen. That was a late season supersedure, and I suspect she hasn't mated very well. There has been normal worker brood in there, but there is a lot of drone brood in there and it's a bit suspicious. So keep an eye out for a new video. We'll go through that, and I'd like to see some of the feedback, what you guys think as well. But going back to the topic in hand, as you can see, they're only just starting to work this, so I'm going to leave this on and just let them work it and just see what happens. But usually your big strong colonies, like the one in the background, that was busting with bees. If you see in the previous videos, I put a super on that really early and they drew it out, and it was foundation. They just drew it out straight away. The weather went a bit rubbish for a week or two, and now we're into a good week of weather and they're just piling it in now, absolutely piling it in. That's what I've done with the demo ray. It sort of just supercharges the queen, if you like, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a lot of honey off that and a lot of drawn out foundation as well. So there's a couple of ways I use what's about naturally to get foundation drawn out. It's just so much easier, it's cheaper, it's what the bees want to do anyway. But what you can also do, if you are making splits, you can feed them. Obviously you don't really want to do that with super frames on, although you can get shallow foundation drawn out on feed, but obviously if you start storing it, then you know, potentially you could be selling sugar honey, if you like. So with my splits, I would do a 3-frame split. Normally I'm doing a lot of splits at the end of May, beginning of June. I have a lot of queens on order, so I'll be putting them into nukes, 3-frame splits, another 3 frames of foundation. I'll feed them on a weak syrup. So you can feed your nukes because naturally they're going to want to expand, the queen's going to want somewhere to lay, so naturally giving them feed will let them draw out the foundation. Like I say, you can do that early season to help them draw out the super foundation, but again, you've just got to be quite careful on when you decide to do that, and you've got to be careful if they start storing it. You don't want them to store it. So the way I do it, I single out my strong colonies and I get them to do the hard work. They're the ones really wanting to pile it in. They're the ones that want to store it. The weaker ones, you probably need to find out why they're weak in the first place, but they will naturally draw out foundation. You can checkerboard in the brood box if they're not filling the box out properly, and if we've got quite a lot of bees in there to keep the brood warm, and it is warm on a night, you can put a frame of foundation in between 2 frames of brood. Don't go too mad if there's not a lot of bees in there, because it could chill the brood, but if there is a decent amount of bees on, you don't have loads of boxes on top, so they can keep the heat. They will draw that foundation out. There's nothing they hate more than having a gap in the middle of the brood, whether it's food that you want them to put upstairs or it's just a frame of foundation that's just doing nothing. They will jump on that and they will work that. So in my view, I think drawn comb is probably the most valuable commodity in beekeeping for me. Honey is great, but you can't have honey without drawn comb, so you've got to have the drawn comb first. And like I say, if you can look after it, store it well in winter, keep it away from any wax moth, seal it up. I try and store mine outside, sealed up, so they've got the natural cold weather in the winter. We're in North Yorkshire, so it's bloody freezing most of the time, so that'll keep and it'll kill off any sort of wax moth naturally with the cold, and then just keep it protected from pests. So for me, drawn comb is the number one. It's so powerful. A super full of drawn comb on a strong colony, they will fill that super in a matter of days if the weather's right and the flow's right. You make splits with a good queen. You can put drawn comb in there that's not too black, mind. You know, you want it quite new and fresh, and you want to know the history of it. You can put that into the split and the queen's got somewhere to lay straight away. If you're doing a demo ray as well, Ideally, I try and put a couple of drawn combs in the bottom box with a queen, so she's got somewhere to lay, because sometimes you can get bees absconding. So I hope you enjoyed the video. This is just how I do it. There's loads of different ways of doing this. Other people have their own methods. But if you had liked the video, please subscribe, please like it, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.